Michael Lai here from Seattle, Washington, USA, and it is Tuesday. So every Tuesday, I took the time from my schedule to share with you best idea and strategy and way that can help you to improve your business and income, right? So we'll look at the calendar right now, and it is the the first the first week of July. So July 6th. So time flies so fast, and so we're entering into the second half of 2020. So this is also a second half. This is the remaining 6 months of the 2020. It's the last 6 months of the decade, right? So we want to learn a lot. We want to grow your business. So we started out with the 20 advanced business workshop topic. First we're starting out with time management, right? Creating the schedule that work for you. Then we go in depth and discuss about prospecting, lead generation, and way that you can do customer acquisition. It's really important for you to do that. We also looking at the past client, people that people that know you, right? And your sphere of influence. So how do we get 10% of those clients that prefer business for you, that supporting your business, right? So we also talk about discuss about pre-qualify your client, right? Pre-qualify is just like if you don't pre-qualify your client, and it's just like you walk into a I was in Hanoi, Vietnam, in January, and I walked to a Ha Long Bay. It's just like, all right, so going on the business meeting with your customer without pre-qualify your client. It's just like you walk into a dark cave, and you don't know what in it, right? So pre-qualify your client is really important. Also on the follow-up, on day number 5, we'll talk about follow-up. Because face it, no matter what you do, how hard you work, how much budget of marketing, how much time you put into the customer acquisition, growing your business, right? But if you don't do the follow-up, get 78% of the business becoming follow-up. So follow-up is important. Make sure that you on the day one you create the schedule. You build a time for you to do customer acquisition, right? Spend 2-3 hours, depend on your goal and your objective for the year. Lead follow-up is also very important. So build that into your schedule. Then we on the day number 6, we're looking at the presentation, like professional presentation, right? Anybody have a presentation. I myself have a presentation. I sat down with one of my clients in Bartow, Washington yesterday, and we sat down and talked about hit EV5 project. That what would it take for him to be successful? That fundraising the project, out of $80 million deal that he tried to do, right? So again, sit down with the client, share an idea, and way to do business. It's about the presentation, what you can present for your client, right? So for those out there that you go in on the presentation with your high-end residential, you always will always need to have a presentation. And so whether you're going on leasing with today's market, right, you still have to need your presentation, right, to justify your comparable, to justify the market statistic, and also showing the client what you're going to do for the client, right? So presentation is important. On the day number 7, we're talking about like pricing the asset so it sell, right? Because you either pricing it to sell or pricing to keep it, right? So your job as a professional, very important that you price in the asset and you price it right. Because if you don't price it right, instead of getting paid, you pay. And you don't want to do that. If you're not good in pricing the asset, pricing the product to sell, you need to really come to the advanced business workshop and work on that particular skill. Because if you be able to, if you're gonna take on, more transaction, we be able to take in more lifting, more business, right? You're spending more time, you spend more of your staff time, you spend more advertising, you spend more budget, to promoting your asset. Now, if you're gonna take on, depend to the volume of the business. So if you're gonna take on more business and you don't price the product sell, right? Because I mean, over the last 22 years, when I coach over 146 entrepreneurs in the real estate business, and I now take, for example, residential listing, right? If you calculate all the time that you put into it, plus marketing, promotion, right? And your neighborhood marketing, regional marketing, internet marketing, right? Mail out and direct mail, it costs tremendous amount of money. Say, for example, if that budget is going to be like about $10,000 per transaction, right? But if you don't price it right, you have like 4 transactions that you do. So 4 of those are going to cost you like $40,000. But here is the catch. What if you don't price it right, and it's not, it's not gonna get sold, right? So get what? Who gonna pay? You pay, right? You want to get paid and get the job done and get the customer satisfied. So really look at it, the pricing the asset on day number 7. It's really important. So today I wanted to share with you the very important topic, which is like objection, handling the objection, right? So handling objection is it's really important because face it, real estate, and the business is a nothing but a conversation, right? And it's a conversation that you get. You talk to your client when you do customer acquisition over the phone or in person, however you do it. But then it's also when you get into the client, you make a presentation. It's also another conversation you have with your client, right? But the customer is the one that's serious, that qualified, that cooperative, that motivated to get the access. So, right, they always have some concern. They always have some question, I talking to my client on an $80 million deal that he have. We have about 1 hour presentation about what we do. But guess what? There were like 14 to 16 questions that asked during the presentation, right? So and I know when you're going out there, this question. So you always have the business objection, right? So I wrote down here is that the objection is the questions in the minds of the client that remain unanswered, right? And your job is answer the question, right? The objection never change, right? And then the customer can only ask you so much question, we call it objection. So as a professional, you learn the question and answer it to the client, right? So that you can continue to move forward with your presentation about your service and product, right? So if you learn the question, the objection yourself, then you're gonna need some practice, right? So if you're gonna learn something, I'm from Vietnam. I came from Vietnam. When I was 14 years old, I went to China, but I went to Hong Kong and Philippines and ended up in Seattle, USA in 1993. I'm so, at the 14 years old, I'm so confident about to protecting myself. Because when I was young, I practiced taekwondo, right? Kung fu, right? So if I were to practice kung fu a lot, and I practice kung fu, for the good of four to 5 years, all the way to the black belt, right? So I'm because of my ability, my skill is pretty high. So I feel very confident about protecting myself. That's why I'm facing with the challenge. I'm you know I'm not back away from it, right? So it's just like the objection, right? It is if you learn how to answer to the question of the client, you're confident to go at. You cannot wait to go and talk to your client, right? So I wrote down here is that yes, the objection is the statement of fact that you can do nothing about, right? It's a condition. Condition is statement of fact that you can do nothing about. So what is the objection and what is the condition? So the condition is just like I work with NBA legend, right? My friend Jim Donaldson brought me to the NBA Legend Association, and so we meet every October. We meet once a year, but there was a meeting between me, myself, and James Worthy, who played the point guard for Los Angeles Lakers, right? And then we got Penny Hardaway from playing for Miami Heat, right? I make a joke about it. I told everyone, that I would like to be a center, for Miami Heat, right? And everybody were laughing, and I also laughing with them as well. Why? Because it's not the objection, it's the condition. If nobody, no NBA team owner would hire, a guy my age, my height, I'm 5'10", so if you be a center of the Heat or the Portland Trail Blazer, when I don't have the Seattle Sonic anymore for over 10 years, right? So if you want to be a center, it's a certain age, right, and a certain height, right? You got to be over, 6'8", 6'11", or above 7-footer for you to be center for the NBA, right? So there's nothing I can do about that, right? So move on. It's a condition. It's something that I cannot, that's a condition. It's a statement of fact that I cannot do nothing about. But the objection is something that you can handle, So that's a big difference between objection and the statement, right? So when you're working with the client, I wrote down here that you consider, right? You consider that a direct correlation between the number of objections you receive and the strength and the quality of the presentation, right? So there's direct correlation between the number of objections that you're gonna get and the strength and the quality of presentation, right? So if you look at me like today, when I came to America, I did not know how to speak English, but I learned the language, right? I learned the language, and then I practice, rehearse, internalize, As soon as today I'm the instructor, I'm the speaker and trainer, right? So I spoke at the Prudential Convention, right? I spoke at the EMG, executive management at the, so many times I'm doing this kind of program. So, but I did not speak English, before when I came to America, right? So, so if your presentation is not that good and you're not prepared, right? So if you fumbling and stumbling with your presentation, for example, if you go on, a capital raising presentation, and your client, your investor, some of this case, you go into like institution, you go into an institution, investor, you got a board of director, For example, if I were to go into one of our development project, it's I went, I were to purchase a project, from a client locally here. It's Valley City Hospital, right? So I purchased an 8 acre of land, right? So 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 I'm making a presentation to board director, about 5 people, right? That they would sell or finance me. They would lend me the $3 million, right, for 5% interest. So so what is the result of the presentation I make to board director? And the result is yes, they find out there's a vote and they agree to it, right? So it's so that if you people don't question you and your ability if you preparing for your presentation, right? So there is a direct correlation between the objection and the strength and the quality of presentation, correct? So for example, give you an example. So if I were to go into the city, and I ask for the rezone on the project, how to get 1 million square feet of the multifamily and senior housing development. And you ask the city council, which is 7 city council plus the mayor, to give you an approval, right? So I have to make a presentation, to the city council and the mayor, right? So what the result of that, right? The result of that is the city council and voting for that, and they give a 7-0 vote to approve the project to get 1 million square feet development, right? So if you go in on a residential presentation, right? If you go into like a commercial leasing presentation or sale, if you fumbling and stumbling, you're not preparing for your presentation, right? And your client, they see that, right? People are successful, homeowner or investor. They are where they are because they know how to selecting between the best and the rest, right? Between the mediocre and not mediocre. Okay, so I wrote down here that okay, thinking over is not an objection. It is a smoke screen for what really concerns the client. The question is, if somebody wanted to think it over, right, then it's not really an objection, right? So it's a concern. The question here, what do you want to find out? The question sometimes asking, I do not want to pay X amount of percent of the commission, right? So then your question for that would be, your answer on that would be, okay, so learning about the client, right? But thinking it over is not really an objection, right? So I wrote down the net point here is that the objection never changed, right? The objection never changed. I started the real estate 22 years ago, right? And then 22 years later, right? I started real estate when a single family home that I purchased, back in 1993, it's $445,000 in Southeast Seattle. Today, the same home is gonna sold for $1 million. Okay, so 22 years later, the objection of real estate never changed. So since it never changed, don't be afraid of them. Learn the answer, right? That at our advanced business workshop, we'll show you the way that how to learn to respond to the objection, right? So I wrote down here that yes, you keep working on the strengthening your presentation that bring the seller on your side, bring the client on your side. And how do you bring the client on your side? In terms of strengthening your presentation, right? So if we're gonna go on the presentation, for example, go on a residential presentation, in terms of looking at what can you really strengthen in your presentation from, price, in terms of, people not agree with you, client not agree with you because of the price, right? So what caused the price at that level, right? So you really have to look at it and say, well, look at the price to sell, look at the price that's so, similar home, square feet, bathroom, and year bill within 1 mile, 2 mile, and 3 mile, and so within the last 6 to 8 months, right? But then you also, you also say, if there are such a comparable asset that's similar to your client asset, and they sell it for X, why would your client sell for X? And what is the chance for them to get it sold, right? So it really strengthening your presentation, in terms of looking at it and say, if there were the issue about the fee, professional fee that the client gonna pay to you, right? So you gotta look at it and say, 'cause I know there's the great company doing a great business and have the most satisfaction. They don't give away the business and they're not cheap, right? So you look at, like, say, I look at right here in Seattle, right? You look at Starbucks coffee, Starbucks coffee, a cup of coffee probably gonna sell, for a lot more, right, than a regular cup of coffee. I mean, you know that, I know that, but customer from Starbucks, they're coming back to the brand, right? Take a look at Nordstrom, store in Seattle, Washington, right? Nordstrom is not cheap, but it's about it's about the it's about the quality product, quality service that you providing your client, and you're expecting to get you're expecting to get paid for that. So your question is not the client not paying you. It's about they do not understand about the price, about the service that you provide, and your job is you have to explain it to them, right? So I wrote down here that you don't have to get the objection if you pre-qualify properly, right? So if you know the client, you're talking to your client, right? You qualify them about the price. You qualify them about the about the fee, right? You talk to them about it. You get to know ahead of time before you get to the meeting. That's the way that you don't have to get a lot of objection if you qualify your client properly, right? So, if handling the objection gonna be there, right? So the more when I started the business, I chosen to go with being active and productive one, right? And I do not wait for the business to find me. I go in out there and find a business, right? So when I go in out there and find a business, I'm gonna set up. I will be doing a lot of customer acquisition, right? So I work really hard, and I find a lot of clients, but then I also have to really talking to a lot of clients, and then they will give me the opportunity to serve, right? So I'm gonna make a presentation to them, and then so because I ask for a professional fee and a professional service, therefore I have a lot of objection, right? But the objection is never changed. It's never changed for me when I can help like 16 clients a month, when I work as an agent, right? So over the year learning about it, learning the objection that remove the fear that we have to about them, and learning the answer and practice them daily so they become part of you, right? I mentioned the question to you. I mentioned earlier about like when I was young, I learned kung fu, right? Same thing, right? It's become like natural reaction. I worked for Dale Jackson from the Seattle Seahawks. Back when Natalie is still in the front, the front desk manager, right? I went to the Seahawks training camp. This guy, they practice, right? They practiced one play back when Mike Holmgren still a coach for the Seahawks, right? And then we have a good coach, Pete Carroll later. But the player, they practice one play, all day long, 12 months a year, right? So like, in order to play 16 games. So professional people, guys, and I work with the NBA legend. They practice, they practice the play, right? So you have to really practice to make it better, right? So knowledge equal confidence, and ignorance equal fear. When you know the technique and the strategy and way to do business, but in this case, you learn or the objection, right, ahead of time. You cannot wait to meet the client, right? So it a fear, remove the fear about them, learn the answer and practice. You will get better. And so, I wrote down here is that, yeah, you do not try to handle the objection during the pre-qualify process and during the prospecting, during the customer acquisition process, right? You do not want to do that, okay? So if somebody gonna telling you about, okay, well, I want a professional fee, you do not argue with them or about fee, you don't want to handle that while you qualify the client or while you prospecting or do acquisition, do customer acquisition process, right? So because people might get mad at you and they don't want to see you, right? So I wrote down right here that yes, you don't have a lot of different answers on the objection that you receive. You just need to have 2 or 3 response in the most common that you hear, right? So what would be for example, what would be the most objection that that real estate professional facing? Commission, right? And so the question about like if I were to if the customer negotiate with a professional about the fee, then how about you negotiate on the service? If I were to give you X service, I ask for X fee. If you were to ask me to reduce the fee, then how about if I were to reduce the service, right? But and I know whenever you respond to something like that, client will say I would not want you to reduce my service, right? So then why would you want to reduce the fees, right? So learn the answer. Objection. You cannot learn all the 40 objections that we have, but you got to write down, handle it, practice until like it become like until you become like you commit it to the memory, right? So the last point that I wrote down here is that even though you emotion during your presentation, right? You lodge it when handling the objection. It make it easier for the prospect to understand, right? So you lodge it like logical information, So for example, if you go on the presentation and you try to sell the asset at X amount, and your client think that you gotta sell the property for X amount. So your job is you really have to bring the comparative market analysis and try to get the client understanding about a comparable property. For example, Mr. Seller, if there are like 5 property nearby with you and they have 3,000 square feet, 5 bedroom, 3 bath, and they all listed at $2 million, right? And you have a similar home, year bill, square feet, bedroom, and you wanted to sell it for 3.5 million. So what is your chance of getting your asset sold compared to other property on the market that compete with you to sell, right? And wait for the answer from the client, correct? Use logical, right, when handling the objection. I know real estate is a conversation, right? But whether customer acquisition, whether follow up, whether making an effective presentation over the phone or in person, how good is your conversation on the scale of 1 to 10, right? I know that it is a skill that need to be developed, and we're here for you. We're here for you every Tuesday, that sharing with you idea, helping you to grow your business and income, right? So with that, I appreciate you taking the time from your schedule today to watch this program and go out there and helping more people and have a great day.